Hello, Secreteers. This is Matt. So, today I just want to talk about the Houston solve and, just my ideas on it and what I think. I got a chance to go down there over the holidays and I went for 15 minutes when I first got there and didn't really, I just really wasn't jiving with what I was thinking. My initial theory, I still think the job is the same. I just had to figure out a different way to do it. But we're going to get into all that. So, in this puzzle, and I think all these puzzles work the same way, is we just kind of have to figure out who we are and what we're supposed to do. It's not so much a like X marks the spot kind of map where you go here to here to here to here to here to get to your X. I know that's not a popular opinion, but that's just what I think. After looking at the previous solves and putting together my ideas on that, I just don't think that's the way these things work. The ones that were the closest to that were Cleveland and if the San Francisco solve is true for the Fairmont, that would be kind of the same thing because he just didn't have the things around him he really needed to tell his story. But in this one, he definitely does. And he kind of had things around him to tell his story in the Boston Solve as well. And I think he had things around him to tell a story in New Orleans, or at least enough to get the story. And like I said, John put some of the story in the images, things like that. And some are story heavy, some are image heavy, but this one is mostly verse as to what we're supposed to do. And you kind of have to like it's kind of like almost like a different language. Like you have to really learn how to translate Byron and what he's trying to tell you to do. And in this one, we have to go to the moon. And the reason we have to go to the moon is he tells you in the first, like, one, two, three, in the first six lines what you have to do. So let's just start with those, right? So, Fortress North, cold as glass. A fortress is just something that's impenetrable. Like, it's hard to get into, it's really tough to get into. Space was really tough to get into. North, just directional up. He's just That's just space, and then cold as glass again, space. Very cold, very transparent. Just that's what that is. And then friendship south, directly like back on Earth toward us, directional. Shout out to Friendship Seven. Take your task to the number 982. So Kennedy gave his speech from Rice University uh, about that we were going to go to the moon. And from the day that he gave that speech, it took us 2,982 days to get there. And I think that's why he has to the number on a separate line because he's just saying to, like the number is playing with words there. Through the wood, no line fears. I think that I've got a theory on that. We'll get to that one later. In the sky, the water veers, and that's going to be like a vapor trail, right? So right around this part, he kind of busts up the way the story goes. Like he kind of moves it around to be a little tricky, right? So if we're looking this at the going to the moon, then in between, like let's see, in the sky the water veers. So after in the sky the water veers would be three winged and slight, what we take to be our strongest tower of delight falls gently in December night. Okay, those small split, yes, three winged and slight. So that's just saying the rocket, and then the booster of that rocket detaches because we're in space now, right? We're going to the moon. We're in. And if you've ever seen those old videos where they detach, it looks like it falls very slow, like it's in the darkness, right? That's what that is. That's all that is. So And then small of scale step across. So he says small step in there, in those two lines, and the most famous quote: "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Mankind is the scale itself, and the small step is the small of scale." So, and then so now we're on the moon, right? We've done our step. Now perspective should not be lost. We got to get back. We can't lose perspective of where we are. We got to get back to Earth, and that's what he's doing there. So, looking back from treasure ground, we've made it back to Earth at that point. And then he says, "There's the spout, a whistle sound." So he's just using two examples there of Earth, right? So one, there's water on Earth. There's no water on the moon, or um, that at least that I know of, and I'm sure they thought that back in '82 too. And then a whistle sounds. Now that one's important too because you can't whistle in space. There's no molecules for sound to bounce off of, so you would hear anything. So you just can't do it. So but that's all it is. So now we know we have to go to the moon. So where would we go to the moon in Houston? In the To me the only answer is Tranquility Park because we have to land in the Sea of Tranquility to do it. So that's where we would go, right? So in my original theory, and I came up with this like a long time ago, was and I think I even made a video on it. And I've somewhat adjusted it now for just because I like what I saw when I got there and got to see what I saw. I liked it better. So when we're looking at when I let me see if I can find it here. Where is it? So I had the four the corner. A lot of the stuff in this park is representative, right? So you got the four corners of Earth, which are these four discs that are all over the place. And to me, like looking down the edge of this, kind of looks like the image. You see the tree, and then you can like count these light poles to be the things in the background. So I was kind of going off of that, right? And so I kind of had the jewel being like right here or something. And if this didn't exist, or if it didn't go all the way to the wall, it would have been like right here below that etch. Now that etch, and that was my theory. I mean, it was real short. It was like stand here, go to here, right here, and come back, and then look there, right. And that was my theory, but it didn't make as much sense as someone else's, right? And the someone else is a young lady named Naomi. Now, about 4 years ago, her and I'm assuming it was her dad made a video, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because I think when I saw it, I was still somewhat new to this, and I never went back to it, but I should have. I would have noticed something, but I never went back. So when I came up with my theories as to like these things aren't so much maps, you just have to figure out your job and what you're supposed to do, and then you get your jewel for doing your job, or playing out in a playful way these things, right? And from what I can tell, like, and these are just my opinions and thoughts. I think Byron does this like from one spot. Like a lot of these are just done from one spot, and he just uses his mind to see I'm going there, and then I'm going there, then I'm going there, and he's just doing these things from one spot. Which why looking at a map they don't make full sense. So, but anyway, so going back to this, and I don't know if I said this or not, but this is George Ward's stuff here, and his he's got friends that make this stuff for us to use, and it's just so much easier to go back. So I'll work off of this on a lot of my videos because it's just easier to do. So anyway, so back to Naomi, right? So I think that's her name. If I'm not saying her name right, for some reason I got Naomi in my mind, so I think that's her name. But she has her dad said this thing is like right dead in the middle of these things, and it's not. But I don't think it has to be because if you count this as the center, then it's in the center. So it doesn't have to be dead even in the center. And when you sit on that bench and you look directly at this fountain, it would have looked a lot like what this other searcher did in his YouTube video. He made and I took a snippet from him. I think his name is like KJRP Key Searching, and he made a video, but he was kind of like all over the place. Like he would stop here and go there, at least on that video. And so I quickly went back, found this because I remember seeing that image right there, thinking like, why didn't he stop here? This is interesting, right? But that water fountain is no longer there. But it just got me thinking like, okay, so then I went back and revisited. After being there, went back and revisited the Naomi and her dad's video, and I think she was right, or very very close. And why I say that is because in this one we have to go to the moon. But since Byron builds his stuff like by just what's around him and the story he's telling, you can probably do all of that from just sitting on that bench. And I think that's what I think that's what he does in this one is he's sitting on that bench and he's telling us all this stuff, right? And so the only one that didn't make sense to me was Through the Wood, the No Line Fears, right? And the only thing I could think on that one was later on we walked across the street and took a picture of that in front of that building that's like over here, and I think there's like lions on top of that thing. Like there's like a bunch of cats looking things that are up there, and if you kind of looking through the trees, um, that would be like. But I also think he just needed something to rhyme with veers. And for whatever, however he came up with that one, I just don't know. But I think our only job was to go to the moon. And in a playful way, if you sit on that bench and you look directly where this thing sits on top of this water fountain, I think that's what we were supposed to do. So her idea was like it was right here by this bench, but I don't think she understood why she was there. She just got there and figured like looked behind her and said that's the spout and stuff like that. And that's fine. That's great. And like I said, I think she's right. But you have to know why you're there. You have to be playful and you have to go to the moon. And in your mind, you can sit there and go to the moon by looking at it like in a playful way, right? So once you get there, you got to come back to Earth, which is that water fountain, to hear your whistle and get water and stuff. But I don't think he actually leaves that bench. I think he just uses that to represent that and stuff. So if I had to pick two places, it would be like underneath the stepping stool of this fountain. But my main place would be where she kind of said was be on the other side of that bench, simply because that's where you can sit and go to the moon and come back just in your head, right? But that's how he builds these things. Is he just sits in one place and then draws his story around him. He did the same thing in Boston using old Ironsides. That was part of Revere's story. If you know Revere, he had to go underneath the bow of a ship. So he's sitting there looking at that ship, and in his mind, he's going underneath it, and then he's going to touch base with everybody else that he needed to talk to, and that's what Byron is doing here. He's like I said, and you can't treat that as a map. Like you just have to know that's what you're supposed to do, and that's why these things are so hard because people are not being playful with them. They're being like I don't know what you directionally. They're just trying to use it as a directional map versus just going out and playing and some of that is just I think that's the biggest problem with a lot of these is you just have to be playful and like I said, my initial like solve to figure out. I've got theories on like most all of them except for like Milwaukee and Montreal. And Montreal to me is just aggravating because I know exactly who I'm supposed to be, but I cannot figure out where in the hell you would go to be that guy in Montreal, and that's the problem I have with that one. But But that's it. But that, like I said, I think he just sat on this bench and looked at that moon and pretended he went there and wrote his verse, and that's all he did. Uh, and it would have kind of looked like that when he was looking at it. And then I got to wondering, like, okay, why does JP hate this thing so much? And then it got me wondering, like, okay, if he physically walked over there before he went back to the bench, did he take a picture on the other side of that, like almost like he's sitting down and using that post to take a picture outward, like you're at the moon? I kind of wonder if he did that, and that's why John hated it so much, because he had to do both, right? You would have to draw it this way and then draw it looking out the other way. But it just kind of, that's just something I kind of wondered. But so let's go back and pretend we're him and we're just sitting on that bench, right? We're gonna build everything that we just talked about, just sitting right there. Fortress North, cold as glass. So when you're sitting on that bench, and I did this, when you look directly at the moon and you kind of look up, the building does somewhat resemble like it has a fortress kind of feel because of the way the top of it looks. But it also could simply mean just look up. Like it doesn't, you don't have to see a fortress. You just know you're supposed to go to space. Um, Fortress North, go Friendship South, take your task to the number. That's to, again, to the moon we're looking at. We're just trying to go to the moon. We can see it from where we are. Um, let's see, so I don't miss any lines. I want to make sure that we get there the right way. Um, uh, Through the wood, no lion fears. Like I said, if you look through these woods, you could see those lions at the top. In the sky, the water veers. Their fountains aren't on, but I'm assuming there's a fountain within sight of here that has water that goes up. That's his, smallest scale step across. That's probably the footprint on the other side of the park over here, or it could simply be representative of going from here across to the moon. So you can build that way. Um, in the center of four alike is, here, small split, three wing in sight, the rocket being built out of the lights. What we take to be our strongest tower of delight falls gently to summer night. The boosters, those boosters were designed I'm sorry, those fountains were designed to represent boosters by the way the water goes over them. And then, of course, the water fountain is Earth or whatever because we're back on Earth. But that's how he builds it. Like you can build everything like just right there. Um, and like I said, if I had to put my money on uh, where else that thing would be if it's not on the other side of this bench, he put it by the fountain over here somewhere. That would be my next guess. Looking at it from the bench, um, it could have been underneath this. Sorry, there went my clock. But there's I would look under here too because that would be my second look. Would be under here if he's actually having us actually go to the fountain to hear the whistle. I don't think he does. I think he just uses it as a representation. But that's it. That's my idea for that. That's all I got for this one. So now I'll just like share a little story uh, that this puzzle kind of like brought back memories for me. Was like back in the day when I was like in a sixth grade. They I was like I went to like a small private school in the country, and one day somebody comes in and says, "Hey, do you want to go to Orlando with your grandparents?" And I guess they had called the school and asked them or something. And I'm like, "Yeah," because I mean, school sucks, right? Yeah, you're 12, so I went down there and we did the Disney World thing and all that. But I think it was like in the middle of the week or something there was one day where they just up and decided we'll just go watch the Challenger. And so we went over there and lined up on the side of the highway. And there was like I remember it was just cold that day. It was really sunny, but it was like one of those sunny, windy, kind of cut you in half kind of cold days. And so I'm like all cooped up in the car and I couldn't stand it. So I had to like get out because we were there like really early before the launch. So I got out and I started playing by the water's edge, and just, looking for being a kid, looking for shells, doing whatever. And so I found this like shell that I picked up, and man, it had something in it that just was funky. I mean, it stunk some kind of bad. So I got back in the car, and my aunt and uncle and grandfather and grandmother, and they were like, "You've got to get out of this car." And but then they knew if I did, I would freeze to death. So they had to come up with some solution. So their solution was to pour perfectly good Budweiser on my hands. So it's like freezing out there, and my uncle and grandfather are cracking open Budweisers out of the trunk. And for them to do that, to waste perfectly good Budweiser, that had to be like a bad smell to them. So, but they poured that all over my hands. I just remember my hands went like numb. And but anyway, it didn't help the smell either. I mean, there was nothing that was going to touch whatever I'd gotten into. But that was it. And then so they just had to learn how to live with it. Like, I think they just held their head out of the car or something. I don't know what they did. But anyway, so later on, the launch is about to happen. So we get out because they got an exact time and everything. And we get out and we line up with everybody else. Like everybody's kind of just standing in front of their car alongside the water, watching this thing go up. And as being 12 at the time, I didn't really know what to expect or anything like that. So I'm just kind of just taking it in more than anything. And so you couldn't like physically see the launch pad from where we were, but once it started going up, you knew that's what it was, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And so it goes up, and then you see it, you saw it explode before you heard it, and it was like the boom was like just a deep, 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 like almost like an echo kind of boom, just a big solid, I don't know how to describe it. It was I don't know. But anyway, but I can still hear it. That's the weird thing. I can still hear it. But anyway, and then like there was some stranger standing next to me, and after like 5 seconds, he just said they're dead, and that's all he said was they're dead. And so being a kid, I'm like, okay, this isn't supposed to happen. And then everybody was just really sad. And it was just a sad day after that. And so we went back to the hotel, and everybody kind of just did whatever. But that was my experience with as far as the history of the United States in space was. I got to be at the Challenger launch and watch that unfold and just experience that. So hopefully one day I can make it back and see somebody go up in better times or something like that. But that's it. So that this one this particular puzzle, once I realized we got to go to the moon, it just brought back a lot of those, and I think that's all Byron is having us do is just go to the moon, and I think he's sitting on that bench to do it. Um, but yeah, I would say hats off to Naomi and her dad for getting where they got, no matter how they got there, and thanks to KJRP and his little videos because I did get to see the angle of the water fountain on underneath the moon before I even got there, and I thought that was kind of helpful too. Even though it didn't lead me to this, particular idea until much later on, but that's it. That's all I got. So you guys take care, and y'all have a good one, and I shall talk to y'all later.